Congress prepares to formalize Joe Biden's victory next week, Donald Trump and his most extreme allies are still hoping that Vice President Mike Pence will attempt to invalidate the will of the people when he oversees the official electoral vote count next week. It's an effort that former acting Solicitor General Neil Katyal says is, quote, doomed to fail, calling it, quote, profoundly anti-democratic and unconstitutional. In a New York Times op-ed, Katyal warns Pence to, quote, count the votes as they have been certified and do everything he can to oppose those who would do otherwise. This is no time for anyone to be a bystander. Our republic is on the line. Former Solicitor General Neil Katyal joins me now, along with Charlie Sykes, editor-at-large of The Bulwark. Neil, I'll start with you. Look, I have seen a lot of losing battles. Battle of Hoth, Empire Strikes Back, the Free Folk versus the White Walkers, anybody goes against Missy and versus. I've seen losing battles before. What on earth are Republicans thinking they can do in this instance? Because this seems like a losing battle that doesn't make any sense. What do they think Mike Pence is going to be able to do?
First of all, Jason, it is a delight to see you in this chair, and I'm so privileged to be here with you.
Thank you.
There's nothing on earth that they can do. I mean, 8 weeks ago tonight, we had an election. 8 weeks ago. This is insane that this is going on in Trump's mind. It's not going on anywhere else. He's just a sore loser. So remember, 59 different courts have rejected his claims across the country. The FBI has rejected it. Bill Barr has rejected it as Attorney General. Mitch McConnell has rejected it. But Trump is still living in this fantasy world. And the claim now is that somehow Pence on January 6th could just throw out the election and pick the new vice president himself and the new president, President Trump. I mean, give me a break. I mean, that is literally what we fought a war about, the idea that we don't have a perpetual monarchy, the idea that, Pence can just open up the ballots and decide who becomes the winner is absurd. I mean, it's like the guy at the Oscars who opens the envelope. I don't think that person gets to decide the winner. Sorry, La La Land. But here we're not talking about movies. We're talking about democracy, the most fundamental thing. The idea that, the vice president gets to pick the next vice president and not you and me. There's nothing more profoundly un-American about this. I mean, it's not even something Putin would come up with. You have to go back to the original Stalin for that.
I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Pence liked La La Land way more than Moonlight. We all know why. But with that in mind, I want to go to you, Charlie Sykes. Look, this is the thing that sort of confuses me about a lot of Republicans in this situation. We have seen vice presidents step up before and have to oversee the counting of electoral votes when they were on the losing side. Sometimes they liked it, sometimes they didn't. I want to play this sound from Richard Nixon, and I want to get your thoughts on the other side.
This is the first time in 100 years that a candidate for the presidency announced the results of an election in which he was defeated and announced the victory of his opponent. I do not think that we could have a more striking and eloquent example of the stability of our constitutional system.
And Charlie, that's Nixon, who, was vilified as one of the most terrible presidents that we've had because he cheated. But we also saw the same thing with Al Gore. And Al Gore had real disputes. So what is it that Republicans are hoping to get out of Mike Pence? Do they want him to buck this system that we've seen from other vice presidents in the past? Do they just want him to be a sacrificial lamb in their blood feud with democracy? Or do they actually think that this is something that's in his soul, that he's really that down with the Trump and Maga cause?
Well, it's hard to tell where the delusion ends and the completely deranged begins here, but it does feel a little bit like the triumph of hope over experience to think that Mike Pence will do the right thing. But I have to hope that when it comes down to it, following the law and doing your duty will come first, that he will choose country over Donald Trump. But as Neil has said so very, very clearly, if he doesn't, this will secure him a place of genuine infamy in American history. And, Mike Pence has been willing to be a sycophant for the last 4 years, but is he willing to completely destroy not only his political standing, but also his place in history, not to mention violate the spirit and letter of the Constitution? You know, a lot of what's going to happen on January 6th, though, is going to come down to Mitch McConnell. We've been talking about him all night, but it really depends on whether or not Mitch McConnell will drop the hammer and tell his fellow Republicans in the Senate, do not file an objection. Don't put Pence in this position. We don't want to go through this circus. And you wonder how far he's willing to go with people like Senator Tuberville, you know, to say, look, if you do this, you're going to get the lousiest committee assignments. Your bills are never going to see the light of day, because this will be a disaster. And number one, for the country, obviously for the Constitution, but also for the Republican Party if they go through this ridiculous and absurd effort to disenfranchise tens of millions of Americans and overturn an election in a cause that is, as you pointed out, is doomed to absolute ignominious defeat.
Quickly, Charlie, do you think that Mike Pence has incentive to go along with this harebrained scheme if he has any plans of running in 2024? Do you think that might be on his mind?
Yes, it does, because he will be vilified. I mean, on January 7th, he will be the number one villa of the Maga-verse if, in fact, he does the right thing and does his duty. And the question is he willing to put up with that? I think it's interesting that he's got apparently a very extensive travel plan for the day after the January 6th vote. But this is one of those moments where you honestly have to weigh who you are. This is the test that everybody wonders, what will you do when you have to choose country over party? In his case, country and Constitution over Donald Trump, who's about to leave office as a disgraced, defeated one-term president.
Yeah, this might be one of those instances where he's left at the gym and doesn't get to take the team bus home. Neil, just very quickly also, when we're thinking about Donald Trump's future, you've been tweeting today about the fact that New York administrators and New York legal teams have started to put together forensic and whole squads in order to examine the finances of Donald Trump. Tell us a little bit about that and what you think that speaks to for what Donald Trump's going to face the moment he leaves office later on in January.
Well, I think New York is doing the right thing in investigating the president, as should have been happened for years, and the Justice Department under Bill Barr shut down the federal side of that. But the beauty of our founders is they recognized that we have a dual system with states as well. And the president can't shut that down. The federal Justice Department can't shut that down. Even President Trump's pardons, which he loves to abuse that power, that can't shut it down. So there's very serious accusations against the president, all sorts of financial improprieties, and that's what's being looked at. And I suspect New York will do the absolute right thing and take the facts where they are. And if he did commit the crimes, has to face the consequences.
I can't help but think about this, and I know I'm asking you guys to prognosticate in a way, but, you know, I've got you on the spot. I've got you here. If Ossoff and Warnock end up winning next Tuesday, do you think that has any impact on the circus we might see on the 6th? Might Republicans just sort of lay down their arms if they see that they've just lost 2 more senators from a formerly southern state like Georgia? Quickly, Charlie, and then to you, Neil.
Yes, absolutely, yes. I mean, think about what a shock it will be if they convene on January 6th, realizing that they've just suffered this double defeat in Georgia. It will very much be on the minds of the senators, and it will strengthen Mitch McConnell's hand.
Neil?
I'd like to think that that's right, but I think, Pence so far has given no signs anywhere of doing the right thing. I mean, this is a guy who still hasn't congratulated our first female African-American vice president in our history. And so he's a kind of spineless individual, and it's worth remembering that whatever he does on January 6th, Senator Harris is going to be sitting in that chamber with him, whether the Georgia race goes one way or the other. And after the way the vice presidential debate went, do you really think Vice President Pence is going to do anything with Kamala Harris in the room?
She will reclaim her time, and I have to reclaim mine. Thank you so much, Neil Katyal and Charlie Sykes. That's tonight's Readout. All In with Chris Hayes starts right now.
Let us keep the United States of America, the greatest nation on the face of this earth, in prayer, and our democracy in prayer. And thank you for coming on to my YouTube channel, One Race, Human Race, All Human. All people have a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Everyone on this planet known as Earth.